Nigerian government has been doing everything to hammer home the evils of what it calls hate speech, including the danger to national security. A northern socio-political group, the Arewa Consultative Forum, a few days ago took up the refrain and warned political and religious leaders in the region to desist forthwith from making inflammatory comments about issues which are at the very heart of the current wave of spiraling insecurity in several parts of the north. However, since the group rose from its meeting in Kaduna, where that position was taken, it has come under a lot of criticism for its failure in the recent past to condemn the use of unsavory language by certain vested interests in the northern region against Nigerians from other parts of the country. But could there be benefits in heeding its clarion call on insecurity? How exactly is public narrative fueling the ongoing siege and widespread onslaught against communities in southern Kaduna by bandits and other shades of terrorists operating in the area? Joining us now to have a discussion around this is retired Group Captain Sadiq Shehu, a security expert and a National Policy Analyst. Group Captain Shehu, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on the ground.
Thank you. Well, I mean, you must have listened to the introduction. The Arewa Consultative Forum is saying that leaders who make inflammatory statements are part of the national security problem, and that forthwith, leaders, particularly in the north, should desist from that attitude. They also had a number of recommendations for northern leaders on agriculture, on poverty alleviation, on education, and the need for synergy, cooperation, collaboration to address the security challenge. How useful do you think this intervention by the ACF is, or this is just a case of the ACF issuing a communique for the purpose of having something to say?
Thank you very much. First, we have to look at things in their proper context. ACF is a regional organization that concerns itself with mostly issues that are happening in the north. So I want us to know that they made this declaration in the context of what is happening in the north. The communique mentioned three specific groups: religious leaders, traditional, and political leaders. Now, when you look at these groups, by the power they exert on the people, the religious leaders, definitely we know we pride ourselves as a country. In fact, we call ourselves the most religious country. So this gives specific and very potent power to religious leaders of every religion that is practiced in Nigeria. Then we have the traditional rulers. The north is a region of culture. Despite the different ethnic groups, they all have traditional rulers, which even predate the colonial rule. So traditional rulers, even with the change in constitutional responsibilities, they still exert a power among the populace where they reside. Then the political leaders, of course, a politician will always seek what will give him power, even if it means sowing discord among the people he wants. He will always look for an advantage, whether good or bad. Now, I may add, even though the ACF didn't say that, I may even add another group or some two groups. I will add the regional or what we call socio-cultural organizations, like the ACF itself, like Afenifere, like Ohaneze Indigbo. You may also add the medium that we are here now, that is the media. Now, when you look at these things, certainly the provision of peace and security is the responsibility of the government, whether federal government, state government, or local government. But certainly these actors mentioned by the ACF and the ones that are added have a very great role to play in how violence is started. Unfortunately, when we look at religious leaders, for example, they have a dual legacy in human history about conflict and security issues. History will tell us from the Holocaust in Germany to the pogrom in Rwanda, to what happens in the Balkans, to even here Nigeria. The religious institution has a dual legacy of, on the one hand, causing conflict, or using the religious instrument to justify conflict. On the other hand, we also have some stories, positive ones, of religious leaders acting, to bring peace or to resolve conflict. However, we also see religious leaders, especially in international organizations, whether UN, African Union, ECOWAS, whenever there is a conflict, you will see, because of our attachment to religion, you will see religious leaders being involved in settling international conflicts. However, I would do respect. While we could say the religious leaders or religious institution has succeeded at the international arena in solving conflicts, unfortunately in Nigeria, the religious institution has not had so much success, in bringing peace to Nigeria. Rather, what do we see? We see mostly, in most cases, religious leaders of every divide trying to sow conflict by trying to take identity, based on religion or even sometimes politics. Even though all this, the religious leaders are there, the political leaders are there, sometimes these things are intertwined. You could find a political leader working with a religious leader for a certain cause. You could find a traditional ruler working with religious leader and with other actors to cause mayhem in the community. So these things, are, even though they are different actors, sometimes their interests combine. So much so that you can see, instead of looking at conflicts in Nigeria purely on perpetrator and actor, purely on criminal and peaceful loving citizens, we have very disturbing terms like majority Christian indigenous people versus majority Muslim settlers. You see issues like majority Christian farmers, minority Fulani cattle headers. So you see issues of identity. So in all honesty, what the ACF did by identifying these three groups and other three groups are added is very, very cogent. Because while the government takes responsibility, these people or these groups, by the power they exact on the people, they have a very big role to play. Because in all honesty, again, like I said, we pride ourselves, whether Muslims or Christians, we are very religious. Most of the things that are even in the, not in the spiritual domain, we rely on our spiritual leaders to guide us. In fact, some people take religious leaders to give them political opinion, to give them economic opinion, to decide to them who is enemy or who is friend. Now, if we have responsible religious leaders, this power can be used for the good. On the other hand, if we have mischievous or ungodly religious leaders, this immense power over the people can be used for bad.
Very good submission. But, the group was specific about comments made by leaders, inflammatory. What is the role of that in the conflicts we're seeing? Would it be correct to say such comments are sustaining the conflict? If not, what exactly is sustaining the conflict we're seeing in the northern region?
Thank you very much. Definitely, words, however used, whether in the media, whether in writing, they have effect on the people. Again, all the conflicts I mentioned, if you go back to Rwanda, there was a radio station that was being used to divide the Hutus and Tutsis and call some people cockroaches. Unfortunately, without mentioning names, we are seeing the spate of this rising in Nigeria. Call it hate speech, call it incitement. I would rather use incitement, because when you say hate speech, there's a very big debate of what actually defines hate speech. But incitement, words that can spur people to violence against other people purely based on identity, they are on the rise in Nigeria. We have seen them there, and I think the government has to do a lot. The calling on the religious, political, and other leaders in the north to come. And why is it so prevalent in the north? Unfortunately, or I can say fortunately, to be honest, if you look at the geographical zones, in all honesty, to some extent, in the south-south, religious differences or ethnic differences is not an issue, because basically it is a homogeneous region. If you look to the southwest, it is there. They may be religiously heterogeneous, but they have been able, through history, through interaction, to paper the crack that divides the Muslims and Christians in that place. It is the north. Whether you say north central, whether you call it middle belt, whether you call it far north, it is the north. Whether basically we have these issues where the divisions along religious, along ethnic lines intertwine, sometimes with even political differences. So much so that in some areas, parties that do not have even religious ideology are being divided as party A is for a certain religion and party B is for a certain religion. This is very, very dangerous. We have to, be our brother's keeper to ensure that this conflagration does not happen.
Right. Thank you so much, Group Captain. I've got two quick questions on this. Number one, you said it all about religion. In fact, Professor Olufemi Vaughan wrote a book about religion and the making of Nigeria, where these issues have been there since the making of Nigeria, how religion has played a very, very important part in everything, in the politics, in the national life and everything. But how can we use religion as a tool to reinvigorate Nigeria for development and to quell the security crisis? Because we've said everything, call the religious leaders to order, but religion too can be used as a force for good as regards, stemming the tide of insecurity and the likes in the region. Secondly, I also want to talk about the actors, security agencies and the likes, efficiency on their part. We've heard about calls for, changing service chiefs and the likes and things like that. And a lot of people say, oh, this is not abating. We saw what happened in Borno a couple of days ago. A lot of people are saying, oh, we want the military to do more. I mean, what would you say as regards that?
Okay, let me start in reverse order. You spoke about the military doing more. Yes, definitely with the security challenges that we are facing, the call for the security, that is in general, whether military or police or even DSS, civil defense, all the security architecture to do more is justified. However, in what I always say when discussing this issue, there are certain minima which the political masters should meet in meeting the requirements of the security agencies before you ask them. You do not ask somebody to farm when you are not giving him enough farming instruments or the appropriate farming implements. With respect to my security colleagues, my seniors, and my colleagues who are still in service, the security architecture, or rather the military in particular, they are always reticent about coming to the public to say, we lack this, we lack that, we lack this, we lack that. But some of us who have served inside, who have made comparative analysis, will tell you that in all honesty, the military lacks a lot to do. But it is not in the nature of the military man. Just like Asuna will complain, we don't have salary, or other labor organizations, the military by its nature will continue to manage what it is given without complaint. In fact, even within the military, it is frowned against for somebody to say we lack this or lack that. That is the military. However, it behoves on the political masters. When you give somebody a task, identify what are the needs of those forces. What are the needs of the police? What are the needs of the civil defense? In all honesty, without being indiscreet, I will tell you confidently that the gaps, even in personnel, the gaps in equipment, the gaps in training are so enormous that we have not yet filled that gap. So in all honesty, the military will continue to manage what they have. But we have to ask ourselves as a nation, and this conversation will be held by the military actors, by the political actors, by civil society, by the legislature, on what kind of military do we really need, and what does it take to have that military? What kind of police do we need, looking at our security challenges, and how do we do that? I do not see that conversation happening. In other countries, in all honesty, these things are discussed openly. The United States wanted to go on operation in Iraq, for example, in Afghanistan. The service chiefs were called. What do you need in terms of equipment, in terms of personnel, to make sure that the operation in Afghanistan is completed within, the reasonable time? They mentioned all that they needed. Now it is up to the executive and the Congress to sit down and see that the military are given that. We don't hold such debates in Nigeria. We don't do that. So in all honesty, I am not speaking because I'm out of the military. I don't speak for them, but I am talking as a Nigerian who is concerned. Our security architecture is under-resourced, both in personnel and equipment. So while still I join the call for the security actors to do more, but I know under which constraints they are also. Has anybody ever asked, for example, have you ever had the question, how many armored personnel carrier does the Army have? Have you ever heard anybody, either in the executive, asking, frankly, how many aircraft, how many helicopters does the Air Force have? How many frigates or ships does the Navy have? How many communication fitted vehicles do the police have? We don't hear those discussions. I'm honest, until we decide that, we'll be throwing money in piecemeal without having actually what Boko Haram will come. Hopefully it will go. Bandits will come, and hopefully they will go. But we have to do that debate. We have to have a coordinated way of structuring our military. How do we do that? If we look that we need, at least, let's say, for example, we said we need 10 battalions to cover all the regions of Nigeria. Then you come back. What do 10 battalions need? How many armored personnel carriers are supposed to be in a battalion? If you say you want a squadron of the Nigerian Air Force, how many aircraft do they need? Where are they supposed to be? We are not doing this. And honest, we are going haphazard in planning our security. And this thing will continue to haunt us.
All right, the first question about religion. The first question about religion, sir.
Okay, again, I come back to say, being Nigeria, where we are, the religion, like you rightly pointed out, like I said, has a force for good and a force for evil. So we have to call on our religious leaders. There is this fantastic document called the Phase Plan for Action. It was a consultation by the United Nations with religious leaders from different origins, and they came out with Nigeria was represented there. I don't know who represented Nigeria, but certainly I know they must have carried a Christian and a Muslim to represent Nigeria. I saw some of the pictures, though I didn't see names. That document, in all honesty, if all the religious leaders will abide by it, it will certainly, bring peace, and then they will be able to use their offices instead of sowing mayhem. The good thing, or the practical thing we seem to ignore, is that, in all honesty, there is no religion that doesn't teach peace. None of the major religions that I know. There's no religion that says, fight your neighbor. In fact, in almost different languages, you see the religion saying, treat your neighbors very well. Treat strangers very well. You can finally find these exhortations in the different scriptures we have. But what do we have? We have religious leaders inciting violence. And on the Nigerian side, I see one very troubling phenomenon. People seem to like fire and brimstone preachers. The more violent, the more antagonistic you are. In all honesty, even the more followers you are going to have. It's like we lack violence. The media is not helping matters by tagging some preachers as fiery preachers. Fiery preachers will get a big congregation because people want excitement. But that is not how it should be. I want the religious leaders to look at that document, which I am sure they are more aware of than me. That first document is the designed first plan of action in Morocco. It was designed for all religions all over the world to ensure that crimes based on identity are not there. Some of the important recommendations done is that whether a Muslim preacher, whether a Christian preacher, when you find a Christian or a Muslim who has shown good neighborliness, who has saved his neighbors during intercommunal crisis, both Muslim and Christian preachers are supposed to celebrate that person. We had one man in Jos. Unfortunately, and very shamelessly, it was the American embassy that was honoring that man. This would have been a very good time. Of course, I could draw examples from the other side. This one, the only one that came to mind. It was the Americans that went and celebrated that man. That man's story didn't feature for 2-3 days. It is off the media. But our media, if it is Muslim versus Christian, they will dedicate series and series of programs, and volumes of ink will be spilled to write on that story. Nobody celebrated that man. One of the recommendations of that phase is that where you find people or communities that have been able to paper this divide based on religion, all the religions should celebrate those people, thereby sending the message to all the followers that this is what should be copied.
Well, Group Captain, on the question of religion, there is even a body called the Nigerian Interreligious Council, which is NIREC. Maybe there is also a role for it. But in the course of this conversation, you've mentioned the media about 4 times. First, you said you were adding 2 categories of leaders to the 3 categories identified by the ACF. And one of the 2 that you added was the media. And then you've accused the media of being more interested in inflammatory materials that will be sensational. Now, I mean, our job as journalists is to report the news. We do not invent it. I agree with you that we also have a role to play, but what kind of role are you prescribing for the media, playing a leadership role in society? It will be interesting to listen to you.
Thank you very much. Without being immodest, I have had a stint with the media. having served as a spokesperson for the Nigerian Air Force while I was in the service. So I have dealt with the media, and I've also studied media. So definitely I'll agree with you. The media man will always argue that he has a duty to report. He has a duty to inform the general public of what is happening. There is no desire. But in all honesty, there's also a duty to be responsible. In my studies on counterterrorism, for example, even in the advanced countries that recognize this media freedom, there are times when the authorities can call on without force. You know, it's self-regulation is what I'm looking at, not forceful regulation. The media should be able to put some self-regulation, you know. There are some stories that you will ask yourself, of what benefit is this story if it doesn't go out? If it is not going to serve the general good, I don't think you are doing anything against journalistic ethics if you decide to drop that story. That's what I'm talking about. And again, to be honest with you, like the latest, I don't want to go into details. The last place where we have a very important personality passing some messages which were not corroborated, I gave the Nigerian media a thumbs up because I actually did a research on that particular story, which was all over the news last year. First, the story was never reported by the traditional media. Here by the traditional media, we know our standard newspapers, we know our TV stations, they didn't carry that story. That story came on the modern media or the external media. Even the papers, the few that reported it after, they always aligned that this is why they picked the story. So in that element, honest, I saw the kind of responsibility I am liking to see. When reporting, for example, figures about like wars, our troops will get successes and they will get setbacks. The teaching, like in armed conflict, is that the national media should not sensationalize attacks, for example, by Boko Haram on troops, because it doesn't, you know, you are giving oxygen to the Boko Haram, for example. If, for example, you come and say in a daring commando-like raid, Boko Haram took out a military formation. Boko Haram are not commandos. So please, by giving them a tag like commando raid, you are kind of legitimizing their action. So honest, what I am saying on the media, it is even more to do, even though the traditional media also, they do that. Once in a while you see them, you know, derailing and going along identity lines. But the most constant conflict is the social media, for the simple reason that anybody can be a news reporter on the social media. So what do we have? We have people, you know, going online and creating stories and putting them. But what I would appeal here is to the general public, Nigerians, because one person sends a story, before we even have people carrying mass graves from another country and they're situating it inside the country and putting it online. Everybody, like I said, in the social media is a journalist. But you, again, as a citizen, you have a responsibility, even something on media, to interrogate it. Nigerians have to develop media intelligence. You have to ask, what is the source? Has it been reported by other sources? What is the credibility of that source? You have to do your research, because if you don't do that and you share or you like or you comment, you are propagating that. So honest, back to their question specifically, I am not advocating clamping of the media. I am an advocate of self-regulation by the media to see what will serve the general good, even as I recognize fully the media's role to inform the public of what is happening.
Okay. Let's talk about the reality on ground as regards the insecurity in the region. The ACF also describes the situation and the conditions of living. It actually equates it to the times of the Civil War. From all that you know and all that you have seen, is this a true assessment of the situation? And secondly, is the insecurity in the northern part of Nigeria beyond solution? And just last week, the president described the insurgents as mere scavengers desperate for food. But barely 3 days ago, we saw the insurgents kidnapping 100 people from Kukawa in Borno State. Do you get the sense that we have a grasp of the situation on ground? Does the president and the presidency have a true picture of the situation in northern Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. Again, sometimes when we draw comparison to what happened in the Civil War and what happened now, we have to be realistic. We have to be evidence-based. The unfortunate Civil War between brothers in the country, it is very easy to know the figures of the people that were killed. certainly the catastrophe in Nigeria has not reached that level, and we don't pray for it to come to that level. So honest, I will not share the illusion that, we have reached the level of civil war. We have not reached that, and we don't hope to ever reach that. As a matter of professional concern, I am among the people that I always keep close tabs on the, casualty rates, people that died during the Boko Haram. In fact, I have a file where I keep monthly figures. And in arriving at these monthly figures, in all honesty, I don't rely solely on governmental, sources. Because as a researcher, to do justice to anything, you have to look wide and far. I rely and then interpolate. And of course, what I have may not have 100% accuracy, but I cross-check. I don't use one source, and I don't use only governmental agencies. At the same time, again, I understand there are sources that would like to exaggerate, while there is tendency for the government to, underestimate what happened. Having said all that, we have not reached the civil war rate of killings that and we hope not to go there. Now, on the issue whether government is saying that Boko Haram are only now scavenging for food, again, is one of the indices that some of us track over when the Boko Haram started, since from 2009, 2010 until date. We look at certain indices. And what are those indices you look at? You look at first, like I just finished taking, the rate of people being killed, be they civilians, be they military or security forces, be they even the Boko Haram. This is one index that we'll use to track the progress or lack of the counterinsurgency war. The next index you look at is area occupied or under effective control. I emphasize effective control. Area under effective control by Boko Haram. And of course, you have to also factor in the number of IDPs, the people who are displaced because of the insurgency who can no longer remain. In all honesty, what indices show, indices from when you, collect all the indices, what it shows is that there is an improvement over the years. From 2010, 2011, up to 2015, you can see the ascendancy. Each of these years, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, these indices I mentioned were on the rise. Then from 2015, 2016, 2017, these indices were on the decline. Unfortunately, from end of 2017, 2018, 2019, we started recording a reversal. However, the reversal has not still reached the 2013, 2012, 2014 figures. So, in all honesty, you can say there are indices of success, but also there are indices which shows that a lot more needs to be done. As to Boko Haram, that they have been reduced to scavenging for food, again, this can be evidenced by the fact that Boko Haram are not actually exercising effective control over any area. I emphasize effective control because that is not to say Boko Haram are not there to carry out hit and run tactics. I saw one article just last week which still claimed that 17 local governments in Nigeria are under Boko Haram. In all honesty, research has not shown that that is the case. Research from even reputable, independent foreign media, that is not true. And I'm happy this morning, I listened to Governor Babagana Zulum, on BBC Hausa, saying that he does not believe. I was carrying out a research, and that formed part of my research. He is the person who should know. What he is saying is that there is not any local government where Boko Haram has hosted flag and carved at its caliphate, as they used to call it, as we used to have in those years. However, we admit there are areas where people still feel, not safe enough, not enough presence of troops to guarantee for the people to return. And in that, honest, I would like the military and the federal government more, not even the military, because again, the federal government has to give the resources to give more people that will bring. Because honest, in counterinsurgency, as opposed to other conventional warfare, the victory is not capturing a town or capturing the headquarters of one country. No, victory lies in the local population returning and remaining where they are and continuing their economic and social lives. Once that is not attained, then victory has not been obtained.
Well, thank you very much, Group Captain Shehu. And thank you in particular for that refresher course on journalism. We're always happy to have you on the program. Thank you.